People power, a legacy of change. The Philippines, a nation forged in revolution, holds a unique place in history. Twice its people have risen to topple dictatorships through the sheer force of their collective will. These were the EDSA People Power Revolutions, moments etched in our national consciousness. EDSA 1 in 1986 brought down Ferdinand Marcos Sr., ending a regime marked by corruption. EDSA 2 in 2001 ousted Joseph Estrada, whose presidency was mired in allegations of graft. These revolutions stand as testaments to the Filipino spirit, our unwavering belief in democracy. They remind us that power ultimately resides in the hands of the people. Yet with time, a question arises. Have we learned the lessons of our past? Are we as a nation truly immune to the forces that led to EDSA? Today, the Philippines stands at a crossroads. New challenges confront us, testing the very fabric of our democracy. The spectre of historical revisionism looms large, threatening to distort our understanding of the past. Economic disparities continue to widen, leaving millions in poverty while a select few prosper. The political landscape is fraught with tension, with voices of dissent often met with repression. As we navigate these turbulent waters, it is imperative that we look back at EDSA, drawing upon its lessons to illuminate the path forward. We must ask ourselves, are the conditions ripe for another EDSA? And more importantly, what can we do as citizens to safeguard the hard-won freedoms that were so dearly bought? The darkness before the dawn, setting the stage for EDSA 1. To understand EDSA, one must first delve into the darkness that preceded it. The Philippines in the 1970s was a nation held captive by the Marcos regime. Ferdinand Marcos Sr., once a democratically elected leader, had declared martial law in 1972, ushering in an era of authoritarian rule that would span over a decade. Basic freedoms were curtailed, dissent was silenced, and the country was plunged into an abyss of fear and repression. Under the guise of restoring order, Marcos consolidated his power, dismantling democratic institutions and ruling with an iron fist. The military, once a protector of the people, became a tool of the regime, used to silence opposition and instill fear. Human rights abuses were rampant, with countless Filipinos subjected to torture, disappearances, and extrajudicial killings. Amidst this climate of fear, a glimmer of hope emerged in the form of Benigno Ninoy Aquino Jr., a charismatic senator and staunch critic of the Marcos regime. Aquino's unwavering belief in democracy and his eloquent denunciations of Marcos's excesses made him a powerful symbol of resistance. However, his outspokenness came at a heavy price. Arrested and imprisoned shortly after the declaration of martial law, Aquino spent years in confinement, enduring solitary confinement and facing trumped-up charges. Despite the hardships he faced, Aquino's spirit remained unbroken. His letters from prison, smuggled out and widely circulated, served as a beacon of hope for a nation yearning for freedom. They reminded Filipinos that even in the darkest of times, the flame of resistance could not be extinguished. Aquino's sacrifice would ultimately prove to be a turning point in the struggle against the Marcos dictatorship. A nation awakened. The People Power Revolution of 1986. The assassination of Ninoy Aquino on August 21, 1983, sent shockwaves throughout the Philippines. The nation mourned, united in grief and outrage. Aquino's death ignited a firestorm of protest. It was a watershed moment, awakening the Filipino people to the regime's brutality. The years that followed saw a surge in activism and opposition to the Marcos regime. Student groups, labor unions, and civil society organizations took to the streets, demanding an end to Marcos's rule. The Catholic Church played a pivotal role, providing moral leadership and sanctuary. In 1986, Marcos called for snap elections in a desperate attempt to legitimize his rule. The opposition, united under Corazon Aquino, rallied behind a single candidate. The election was marred by widespread fraud and intimidation. Despite the regime's attempts to rig the results, it was clear that the Filipino people had spoken. They had chosen democracy over dictatorship, hope over fear. On February 22, 1986, military officers led by Juan Ponce, Enrile, and Fidel Ramos broke away from the regime. They called for Marcos's resignation, denouncing the rigged elections. This act of defiance sparked the People Power Revolution. millions of Filipinos converged on EDSA, a major thoroughfare in Manila. They formed a human barricade, protecting the rebel soldiers and demanding Marcos's ouster. EDSA 2, a promise unfulfilled, EDSA 2, while sharing the spirit of peaceful protest with its predecessor, unfolded under a different set of circumstances. It was a revolution born out of disillusionment, a collective cry of frustration against a leader perceived to have betrayed the people's trust. Joseph Estrada, a charismatic actor-turned-politician, had swept to power in 1998 on a wave of populist support. He promised to champion the poor and fight corruption. However, his presidency was soon mired in allegations of cronyism, gambling and plunder. Estrada's fall from grace was as swift as his rise. Revelations of his involvement in illegal gambling operations, coupled with accusations of amassing ill-gotten wealth, sparked outrage across the nation. The middle class, once enamored by Estrada's man-of-the-people persona, felt betrayed. The Catholic Church, which had initially supported Estrada, withdrew its backing, condemning his alleged moral failings. In 2000, impeachment proceedings were initiated against Estrada, but were abruptly halted amidst allegations of bribery and manipulation. The collapse of the impeachment trial proved to be a tipping point. Protests erupted across the country, with Filipinos from all walks of life demanding Estrada's resignation. As pressure mounted, key figures in the Estrada administration, including members of his cabinet and the military leadership, began to distance themselves. On January 20, 2001, facing overwhelming public pressure and the withdrawal of support from key institutions, Estrada was forced to step down. Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, his vice president, was sworn in as president. EDSA 2, while hailed as a victory for people power, also exposed the fragility of Philippine democracy. It revealed the deep-seated nature of corruption within the political system and the challenges of translating people's aspirations for change into lasting reforms.
You know, today's socio-political landscape is really complex. We see echoes of the past in the present struggles.
Absolutely. The dynamics have evolved, but the core issues of justice, freedom, and democracy remain.
On the ground, people are more vocal now. Social media has amplified their voices, creating a new kind of public square.
Yeah, it's interesting. As a local resident, I notice more community-driven initiatives. People are taking matters into their own hands.
It's like a new wave of activism, isn't it? There's a sense of urgency, but also a lot of hope.
Indeed. The political climate is charged, but it also presents opportunities for meaningful change.
Reporting on these events, I see a blend of resilience and frustration. The public sentiment is a powerful force.
And despite the challenges, there's a growing belief that collective action can lead to significant progress.
History has shown us that change is possible. It's up to us to keep pushing forward.
Exactly. We must learn from the past to navigate the present and shape a better future.
It's a pivotal time, and every voice counts in this ongoing narrative.
Together, we can make a difference. It's about unity and determination.
We see a growing trend of historical revisionism, where facts about EDSA 1 and 2 are being distorted. It's really concerning.
Yeah, and this isn't just happening in classrooms. It's all over social media. And even some politicians are pushing these false narratives.
As a journalist, I find it alarming. The truth about our history is being manipulated, and people are starting to believe these altered versions.
Absolutely. If we don't counter these falsehoods, future generations might never know the real story of our fight for democracy.
We need to be vigilant and proactive in preserving the truth. It's our responsibility.
The public sentiment right now is a mix of frustration and hope. People are tired of the same issues persisting year after year.
Exactly. There's a palpable sense of unrest. The conditions are ripe for another mass movement, but it's uncertain when or how it will manifest.
As a local resident, I can tell you that many of us are fed up. We want change, and we're willing to take to the streets if we have to.
The spirit of EDSA lives on in the hearts of many Filipinos. We haven't forgotten what we can achieve when we stand together.
It's a delicate balance, though. The government needs to address these grievances before they escalate into something larger.
Social media has become a powerful tool for organizing dissent. It allows us to mobilize quickly and effectively.
True, but it also spreads misinformation at an alarming rate. We need to be careful about the sources we trust.
From a journalist's perspective, social media is a double-edged sword. It amplifies voices, but it can also distort the truth.
We have to use it wisely. It can unite us, but it can also divide us if we're not careful.
Social media is a reflection of our society. It shows our strengths and our vulnerabilities.
The question on everyone's mind is, will history repeat itself?
The conditions are eerily similar to the times leading up to EDSA 1 and 2. People are frustrated and they want change.
Yes, but there are also significant differences. The political landscape has evolved, and so have the methods of dissent.
As a journalist, I see both the potential for another mass movement and the challenges that come with it.
From a local resident's perspective, the desire for change is strong, but there's also a sense of caution. We've learned from the past.
The government is aware of the public's grievances and is taking steps to address them. We are committed to maintaining stability and progress.
Only time will tell if the spirit of EDSA will rise again. What remains clear is that the legacy of those movements continues to shape our present and our future.